We've covered some of the items under the Layouts menu, but let's cover the rest of them so you completely understand all the items and can look back to one section here to find out exactly what was covered and how that Layouts menu works. So let's go up to the Layouts menu, and you'll see the first choice is New Layout Report, which we've covered. We haven't covered every single type of layout here, but they're all basically the same. It's an assistant that walks you through how to create them. I've always said blank layout is my favorite because I want to design my own interface. Of course, you can choose where to show records from. That we only have one table, so there's nothing to choose here. And include layouts menus. That talks about this menu right here and says if I uncheck this, I can only see that layout from the layout menu when I'm in layout mode. If I check it, now I can see that layout in the layout menu from Browse, Find, and Preview. So we'll cancel this. Go to the next item. We have duplicate layout, and I use this quite a bit. The reason is because when you're creating a complicated interface, which we'll get into in the intermediate tutorial, often you want to go ahead and quickly duplicate all of your interface, your graphics and things like that, and positioning of things, so you can have it looking the same on the next layout. And then all you have to do is change what fields show on there, or maybe even what table it's showing records from. So that's very handy to duplicate a layout. And all it does is duplicate the layout and make a copy of it. So this one will be called Form Copy, and you can modify the name and whatever you wanted to. Then you have Delete Layout. Now Delete Layout is very scary, which is why it has a dialog. If you delete a layout, it's permanently deleted. So this is probably a good time to talk about doing backups. When you're developing and putting a lot of time into a FileMaker file, you want to make backups. Maybe every hour, every couple of hours, once a day. It all depends on how much you're willing to lose. So if something goes wrong, your hard drive crashes, or you make a big mistake or something like that and delete all the records, you'll be glad that you've made those backups. And they're not hard to make. Just close the file, and the file does have to be closed. Make a copy onto an external hard drive, and maybe change the name to designate what time you made that backup at. So backups are important, especially when you can do things like delete layouts or delete all records and things like that. So your next item is go to Layout, Next, and Go To. Just like you would use this Rolodex for. Very simple. I don't usually use these, but you might look at them for the keyboard commands here. That can be handy so you can rifle through all of your layouts really quickly using that keyboard command. Then you have Layout Setup, and we've covered this also. There are a few things we haven't covered, but let's go ahead and make sure you understand everything. And in fact, let's make sure you understand that you can get to this by clicking this little pencil right here. Same thing as going to the menu. So let's start off with script triggers because this is the area we really haven't touched at all. And we're not going to touch it right now. I'm going to give you a brief overview so you don't think, what is that script triggers thing? Well, we haven't even covered scripts yet. Scripts are usually run by clicking a button. Script triggers say run based on an event. I could say when I look at a record or record load, when I enter a layout, when I revert a record, I can run a script based on those events. So there's quite a few of them here, but we're not ready to go over them yet. So let's move on to the rest of the stuff. We have the printing section. We're going to go over it briefly, but actually use it in some of our printing modules. So we have print in 2 columns. You can change that once you check on it. You can put in fixed page margins, which are different than the margins that are set up when you just use the full page. In other words, your printer has a printable area. And unless you use fixed page margins, it's going to try and fit that page break you see right here is going to be your total printable area. If we set it differently, like we make it bigger, those margins, well then that page break will move in a little bit farther over here. So again, we'll go over this later when we're covering how to print reports and how to print and things like that. Your views, we've already gone over that. We have form view, list view, table view. We have the properties. We've gone over all this stuff already. I just want to make sure you remember it's in this area here. And then we have our general. We've changed the name. In fact, we changed this from contacts to form to better match our list layouts. We have a consistent naming convention. Include in layout menus. Of course, we already know what that does because we just saw it in the last layout. It's about that layout menu there. Show records from. Again, this is the same thing we saw as in our new layout. Where are we going to show records from on this layout? We only have one table. Save record changes automatically. Now, we may not have seen this one before. So let's go ahead and uncheck it and try it out. We'll go into browse mode. And we'll go in here and we'll type in, let's say, Database Pros. As soon as I click outside of this area, not on another field, it's going to ask me, do you want to save changes to this record? Normally, FileMaker just automatically saves it if you have the item checked. So you can hit save and that change will be saved. You can hit cancel and you go back to editing. And if you click out of this again, this dialog will come up again. Now you can get out this dialog when you're changing records, or when you change layouts, or if you go ahead and hit the enter key on the keypad. All those things will allow you to bring this commit dialog up and ask if you want to save the changes. It's kind of almost like the revert, but it happens automatically. And so if we hit don't save, it just simply takes it away, just like you could do with a revert record. So it's all personal preference. I don't like it. I like it to save them automatically, especially if you're making backups. You don't have to worry too much. FileMaker server can do automatic backups for you if you're in a multi-user environment. That's just a little bit annoying to users when they're trying to quickly get through with their job. So we'll go back into our layout setup and turn that back on. And let's turn this one off. And actually, before we turn it off, let's see what it looks like and remind you what field frames are. In fact, we may not have we've talked about it, but maybe not the terminology for it. So we'll go to browse mode, and when you click into a field, you notice how the current field gets a dark outline and the other fields get a dotted line. As soon as I move down here, it's got the dark line. Well, that's what a field frame is. So if we go to layout mode, go to layout setup, and uncheck that, you're going to see the difference now. It's subtle, but it's there. So as I click in here, you'll see that because we have these borders, you can't really see the black outline, but you certainly can't see the dotted line anymore. So you got to determine whether you want that or not. I personally kind of like it a little bit. It's a personal preference. So we'll go back into layout mode, and we'll go back into our layout setup, and I'm going to go ahead and check that back on. Now, here's something we're not going to cover right now. This is for custom menus, and custom menus allow you to change these menus completely. Have them run scripts, change the names, remove values from it. That's what this has to do with, and so we're not going to explain because there's no point. We haven't covered custom menus, and we're not going to cover that too a lot later. It's a very advanced feature. And then we have enable quick find. That refers to the new quick find feature, but you can go ahead and disable it if you want to, if you don't want to have that feature, because it essentially searches all fields on that layout, and if you don't want somebody to be able to do that, well, then you can disable it. So we'll go ahead and click OK here. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue on with the rest of this layouts menu in the next section.